Ryan Adams, La Cienega Just Smiled, the second record choice of our guest this week, the Norfolk musician Lisa Redford. And, Ryan Adams there, he's got something in common with you, isn't he? Because you've worked with some of the same musicians, I think, haven't you?
Yes, when I did my album Clouds with Silver, this was before I was sort of living there. I went to record the album and just sort of doing it like via email and things like that without meeting the musicians, just organising it all myself, the sessions and everything. And a lovely violinist who did a couple of beautiful arrangements on my album. Yeah, she worked on Ryan's album, so very exciting. Also, when I worked on an EP, Reminders in Brooklyn, I worked with some wonderful musicians there as well. It's really inspiring.
Do you remember the first song you wrote that you'd say, yeah, I actually think that this is something that I can present to other people?
Probably something off the very first album, I would say. I mean, anything prior to that was probably just like, sort of little tunes and things like
little
that.
Noodles.
Little pop yes.
Oh, right. So, I mean, you wouldn't say that there was something that you wrote as a youngster and then kept it and then put it on the first album?
No, not really, no. I mean, I used to just sort of, my friends used to sort of say, oh, I love that song that you've got, and I'd just sing to people in the class. But no, nothing I'd maybe want to sort of, have on a record. But I suppose something on my first album, Slipstream, something like a song called Don't Tell Me or Red Eyes. They're sort of very early songs that I wrote, and that's basically what I did. With the first album, was just a collection of all the songs that I'd written that I thought these are pretty decent.
Were you able to go at music full time then, or did you have to have a day job and do it in the evenings?
I have at points, for sure, yes, but I mean it's a very sort of difficult existence. Has very fulfilling times, like, as I say, going to play some great festivals and recording sessions for Bob Harris and things like that, and then other times it might be quieter when you're just in a more of a writing mode. So I've done other things, and particularly teaching music. So it's sort of passing on, sort of the skills that I've learned by playing live. So I teach vocals and also guitar and ukulele. So keep very busy.
Ukulele?
Yes.
That's quite big again now, isn't it?
That is, yes, it is. And it's actually very sort of a happy instrument. And it's sort of, if you're feeling a bit low, it does sort of, it's got a lovely joy to it, and it's good for the youngsters, sort of to learn, really, because it's not as hard on the fingers as the guitar.
But really what I was asking, Lisa, early days, leaving university, before you're properly established as a musician, did you have to go out and do an office job or work in a shop or anything like that?
Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, gigs are great, but they're sort of difficult at times. You might get something that's a really great well-paid thing, and festivals, and then yes, I mean I've done all sorts of things, really, and done lots of courses as well, because I just love to sort of always learning different things. I've done all sorts of things, web design, proofreading, all sorts of things, writing, as I say, which I still continue to do, writing the columns.
But there's still that vein of creativity, isn't there? Yes,
that's right. It's nice having sort of the different outlets, because particularly now as well, because you sometimes have periods where like say before the festival season and things like that, where you're not playing as much. So I like writing about music as well. I've written for, as I say, Songwriting Magazine, who I'm like a really big online music magazine, and I specifically have written things like tips for other musicians, like, I don't know, dealing with stage fright and writer's block, things like that.
Well, okay, how do you deal with stage fright? Because if I got up in front of everyone with a guitar, I'd be absolutely petrified, because I don't play. But,
right.
But for people who do play guitar, even those people, first time they're confronted with an audience, presumably, it's pretty terrifying.
Sure. I mean, I've had, certainly the moments before performing, you sort of feel, your heart racing a little bit. I mean, it's hard, really, because I suppose the key is the breathing, but sometimes that can be hard to control.
I mean, what about, how did you deal with it the first time that you were in front of an audience then?
I don't know, really. I mean, to be honest, it just depends on the gig, really. Sometimes, you use the adrenaline as sort of a positive, really, just your energy, really. I mean, I think definitely having something to eat. I mean, not right before, but, otherwise, my hands might shake and things like that.
So
but,
nerves are a good thing, but you've got to control them.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, having control of them. And actually thinking about the next song, Kate Bush, I actually performed at a tribute concert for her. I mean, we weren't doing, impersonations as such, but we were doing, lovely arrangements and performances of her songs, of her amazing catalogue. And that was a particularly, nerve-wracking evening. We did it at the Assembly House, actually, for charity. And I can remember, because she's obviously got that very high range, and, doing that in front of sort of diehard Kate Bush fans was quite scary.
So this is record number 3. Which Kate Bush track have you picked out?
Oh, well, there's so many to pick. I mean, she, like the Smiths and Ryan Adams, she has an incredible back catalogue. But I've chosen, a really beautiful, moving song, This Woman's Work.
You can go. I stand outside this woman's work, this woman's word. Ooh, it's hard on the man. Now his part is over. Now starts the cry of the father.
Kate Bush, This Woman's Work, the third record choice of our guest this week, with another 3 to go from Lisa Redford. First, though, 6:31, the sport. Something happening tonight, Phil Daly.
Certainly is. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, we'll find out later on. Full live match commentary, of course, to come here on BBC Radio Norfolk. Our coverage starts at 7. Norwich City away at Nottingham Forest, and Chris Gorham's already in position at the county ground. The city ground. And Chris, you don't want to get that one wrong. Ahead of tonight, I mean, the manager hasn't got any more injuries to worry about, but he might want to be changing his team after what happened at Carrow Road on Saturday.
Yeah, it's a difficult one for him though, because I think the main part of the Norwich City team that didn't really click at the weekend was the midfield, and that is the one area of the team where his options are limited, because Tom Tribal got injured on Saturday and we expect him to miss out tonight. Alex Tetty still isn't fit, so he's not exactly blessed with lots of options to bring it into that area of the team. He played two very different systems in the two halves on Saturday. In the second half, of course, we had three at the back in an attempt to try and just breathe some life into Norwich City. And I wonder whether we might see that from the start today. I mentioned Tribal's injured. James Husband is suspended as well after clocking up 5 bookings this season. So it's getting to the point again where Daniel Farke hasn't got a huge amount of wriggle room in the areas of the team that are of the most concern at the moment.
And I'm sure one of the things that the head coach is trying to put his finger on is why things don't work at Carrow Road, but they are working better, at least, on the road.
Yeah, it's such a fine margin at the moment, isn't it? Because a lot has been made of the fact that Norwich haven't won any of their last 6 home games, which is a concerning run. There's no way of dressing that up. But it isn't as if they're losing 3 and 4-0 every week. That they've actually drawn 4 of those 6 games, and they're a nearly but not quite team at the moment. You get to periods of games like we saw on Saturday where they take the lead against Barnsley, and you're just waiting for them to kick on, and it never quite happens. I suppose away from home, the expectation is that you're not going to be the team that is kicking on and asking all the questions, and that has suited them better this season. But yeah, clearly a lot of questions still to be answered by Daniel Farke and by Norwich City this season. You do feel a good result tonight, at least a point on the road is necessary just to keep everybody on side, because we've got a massive game at Carrow Road on Saturday when Alex Neil's Preston come to town, so you wouldn't want to be going into that one on the back of yet another poor result.
No, and just very quickly, Chris, 3 points tonight. Those people who still think Norwich City have got a chance of the top 6, 3 points would put them up there again.
Well, things change so quickly, don't they, in the Championship, as we've seen already. We've followed a Norwich City team this season that has been in the top 6. We've followed a Norwich City team that has been in the bottom 3, and now they're slap bang 12th in the middle of the table. So, yeah, it's still a season that could go either way. That is the Championship for you. Things do change very, very quickly. So it's still, I think, impossible to predict with any great confidence where in the table that this current Norwich City setup will be at the end of the season.
OK, thanks very much for now, Chris Gorham. Back with Chris after 7 o'clock, Matthew. Darren Huckabee is our expert summariser.
Our guest picking the records this week is the Norwich-born singer-songwriter Lisa Redford. And Lisa, you spent 3 years living in the States,
That's
didn't
right,
you? I mean,
yes.
you sing Americana. I mean, that
right.
must have been very special.
It was. I mean, I was in New York City specifically. So it was great because there was live music of an amazing standard. You know, every evening. A lot of it is free. You just wander in, and it's also a very obviously walkable city. So you sort of lends itself to lots of sort of people watching and observing.
How did that opportunity come about, though?
Well, I've got a US publishing deal for my songwriting, so having somebody to essentially be your sponsor, allows you to sort of have an artist visa. Something like, I don't know what the extraordinary alien, something like that.
You're an extraordinary alien. But I mean, a lot of your work, I mean, the Americana we talk about really comes from further afield than New York. It's more of a country influence. Were you able
right.
to get out into this other America?
No, that'll have to be the next time. I mean, yes, I think it was quite unusual, but I think with New York, there's such a sort of mixture of music. You know, they have their own sort of country music and Americana nights and club nights and things like that. So it's a bit of everything, really. But yes, definitely have to sort of do something in Nashville, which is obviously sort of hugely.
Well, that's the Mecca, isn't it? Nashville.
Absolutely, Music City.
So you've never been to Nashville?
I have been, but I haven't been to perform. I've had the opportunities to perform there. So, hopefully for the future.
Well, that's got to be on the list, doesn't it?
Yes.
Nashville, what an amazing history musically. But also, Lisa, I have to ask you about Americana country, and it's their music, isn't it? Have they got over the fact that Britons often do it better and sell it back to them?
I don't know, really. I mean, I think, again, like I said before with myself, I don't really sort of, again, class myself like country Americana singer. I just say singer-songwriter. I think a lot of it is the instrumentation. So I suppose, as long as you're not sort of totally trying to mimic and be something you're not, a lot of my singing, a lot of it is, it's got that American influence. But I think it's also from sort of like the 70s singer-songwriters, like Carole King, James Taylor, Joni Mitchell, that sort of thing, sort of a bit of a melting pot of everything, really. So I don't really know what they think of the Brits.
But ever since the Beatles invaded in '64,